Across the vast expanse of the galaxy, the Galactic Empire's name struck fear into the hearts of every species. They were the most powerful force in existence, and their reach was endless. No world was safe. For centuries, they had been unstoppable. Planets that had once thrived, teeming with life and culture, had been turned to dust in their wake. The Empire moved across the stars like a hurricane, crushing civilizations, dismantling armies, and absorbing worlds with cold precision. The Empire's soldiers were ruthless, their technology far beyond anything that the rest of the galaxy could imagine. Their warships were gigantic, capable of laying waste to entire cities with a single blast. Their weapons were sophisticated and deadly, and their soldiers, well-trained, genetically enhanced, and equipped with the best armor, were nigh invincible. The Empire's fleet was like a shadow that loomed over every planet they conquered. No one dared stand against them. Every race that faced them bent to their will or was wiped from existence. The most feared of all the planets in the Empire's long conquest were the deathworlds. These were planets that defied every natural law. They were harsh, hostile places where survival was a daily struggle. The atmosphere could be poisonous, the wildlife vicious and relentless. The terrain was dangerous, and the weather unpredictable. Life on these worlds was not just difficult, it was a constant battle for survival. Yet, the Empire had conquered them all. On each of these deathworlds, the native species were strong, some even having evolved to be nearly indestructible. But the Empire's forces were stronger still. They faced the planet's deadliest creatures, the most terrifying weather systems, and the most dangerous terrain without hesitation. One by one, the deathworlds fell. Every empire, every army, and every species that had thought they could stand against the Empire was crushed under its boot. The conquest of these deathworlds sent a chilling message across the galaxy. The Empire could never be beaten. No matter how strong or savage the inhabitants of a planet were, the Empire had the power to bring them to heel. No planet was too tough, no civilization too advanced. The Empire was like a storm, unstoppable and all-consuming. They had defeated worlds where others had failed, worlds where even the strongest species couldn't survive. Now, there were whispers that the Empire was looking at Earth. Earth, a small blue planet on the outer rim of the galaxy, had remained unnoticed for most of the Empire's expansion. It was isolated, unremarkable in the grand scheme of galactic politics. Earth's technology was primitive by galactic standards, its people divided by borders and politics. The Empire, in its arrogance, had dismissed it as insignificant. They had never seen Earth as a real threat. But that was before the reports started coming in. The scouts and spies that the Empire had sent to Earth began to return with strange stories. They reported that the humans were not as weak as they seemed. They were far more resilient than the Empire had ever expected. They fought wars among themselves, yes, but their sheer determination and will to survive made them dangerous. The Empire's generals scoffed at the idea that Earth could be any more than a minor nuisance. After all, they had conquered far deadlier worlds. Earth, with its primitive technology and fractured nations, could be easily dealt with. The Empire's arrogance, however, was its downfall. They underestimated Earth's people. They believed that a simple invasion would be enough to subjugate the planet, just as it had been with countless others before it. But as they prepared their forces for the invasion, a quiet whisper of resistance began to form on Earth. No one could predict it, not even the Empire's most skilled strategists. Earth was about to show the Empire that sometimes the greatest threat comes from the most unexpected of places. In the Empire's High Council chambers, officers discussed the next steps in their plans. Earth is just another death world waiting to be conquered, General Kravos said with confidence. His voice echoed in the massive hall. We will take their cities, break their military, and enslave their people. We've done it hundreds of times before. But not everyone agreed. The Empire's most experienced commanders, those who had seen countless battles, felt an uneasy tension. "We've conquered many deathworlds," said Admiral Talus, his voice low and serious. "But Earth is different. We haven't faced anything like this before." "Don't be foolish," Krevos snapped. "Earth is just another world. We will crush them with ease." Still, there was doubt in the air. But it was not enough to change the Empire's course. They decided to go ahead with the invasion. They would send their fleet, their most advanced warships, and an army of elite soldiers to Earth. They would break the planet, just as they had broken so many others. And Earth, like every other world before it, would bow before the might of the Galactic Empire. The Empire's fleet set course for Earth. As the ships traveled through space, there was no fear, no hesitation in the hearts of the soldiers aboard. The Empire had never known defeat, and they saw no reason why this time would be any different. The battle would be swift, the humans would cower, and the Empire's victory would be inevitable. But in the depths of space, as the fleet approached Earth, something stirred, something that the Empire had never seen before. And as the first ships entered Earth's atmosphere, the humans, though unprepared, had something waiting for them. It was the beginning of a battle the Empire could not predict, a war that would challenge everything they had believed about the universe, and about the humans they had so carelessly underestimated. The true test had begun. Suspense builds, the Empire's fleet nears Earth, and the tension rises. How will Earth defend itself against the greatest military force the galaxy has ever seen? The first shots are about to be fired, and the Empire's arrogance will soon face a shocking reality. As the Empire's massive fleet descended toward Earth, the atmosphere seemed to grow thick with anticipation. Thousands of warships, each one a symbol of the Empire's unchallenged might, moved into position. Their engines burned bright as they cut through the heavens, casting long shadows over Earth's cities. The people of Earth, who had long been living in the quiet routine of everyday life, were unaware of the massive threat that was now bearing down on them. No one had ever prepared for an invasion on this scale. Earth's governments, still fractured and at odds, were scrambling to formulate a defense. The first wave of ships broke through Earth's atmosphere like a storm, raining down destruction. Their weapons fired at the planet's surface, creating shockwaves that ripped through cities and shattered the fragile calm that had once prevailed. The destruction was unlike anything the world had seen. Buildings crumbled, fires raged, and the air was thick with smoke. Yet the Empire was not concerned. Their forces were too strong, their weapons too advanced. The human response, they assumed, would be quick but ineffective. But something strange happened. The initial chaos of the invasion was met not just with fear, but with a kind of defiance. As Earth's armies scrambled to mount a defense, some regions began to organize, rallying together in a way that had not been seen in decades. The leaders of Earth, divided and scattered just days before, suddenly found a sense of unity in the face of this unimaginable threat. Their armies were no match for the Empire's, their technology outdated, but they had something the Empire did not understand: desperation, and an unyielding will to survive. Across the planet, in the midst of the chaos, humans began to fight back in ways that the Empire never anticipated. The Empire's soldiers were used to overwhelming enemies with superior firepower. They had never had to face an enemy like this before, an enemy willing to fight not for glory, but for survival. Earth's resistance movements, small at first, began to grow. Every corner of the world that the Empire's forces attempted to control was met with a sharp, swift strike. These attacks were not from armies or conventional forces, but from something far more dangerous: Earth's hidden warriors. Snipers, guerrilla fighters, and civilians who had never seen battle before were now rising up against the invaders. The snipers, in particular, proved to be a nightmare for the Empire's forces. The Empire had never encountered a force like this. The humans were not rushing to engage them in open combat. They were hiding, lurking in the shadows, striking with deadly precision from miles away. They would vanish into the dense forests, the urban ruins, and the vast deserts, only to reappear when a target least expected it. Each shot was calculated, each bullet finding its mark with ruthless efficiency. The Empire's commanders were bewildered. They had faced countless battles, but they had never faced an enemy that struck without warning, without any visible presence. The human resistance, though still small, had started to gain momentum. As the Empire's soldiers grew more confident, thinking the war was already won, they began to underestimate their opponents. They assumed that Earth's forces would crumble under the pressure, but the humans adapted quickly, learning from each attack, each battle. Earth's warfighters weren't just defending their land. They were learning the Empire's weaknesses, slowly but surely. Meanwhile, the Empire's commanders were growing frustrated. They were not accustomed to this kind of fight. For every step forward, the Empire lost soldiers to invisible enemies. Their technological superiority, their massive firepower, had proven effective on the battlefield, but it hadn't secured the victory they'd expected. As the human resistance grew bolder, taking down one officer after another with precision shots, the Empire began to question everything. Their war machines, the very same ones that had devastated countless other worlds, seemed inadequate against the will of the humans. And still, the humans would not relent. As Earth's forces pushed back, albeit in small but significant ways, a sense of fear began to creep into the minds of the Empire's leaders. They had conquered deathworld after deathworld, worlds with creatures far more dangerous than humans, worlds that required months, sometimes years of brutal campaigns to subdue. Yet Earth, with its primitive technology and scattered population, was presenting them with something that no one had anticipated: an enemy that refused to submit. The Empire's generals began to meet in secret, discussing how to handle this new development. The invasion that had been expected to take mere days, weeks at most, had already stretched into months. The defeat of their fleet in other areas, combined with the relentless guerrilla attacks on Earth, was starting to wear down even the most hardened soldiers. How could an entire species, so young and seemingly so weak, cause such a disruption in the Empire's grand plan? The invaders had failed to consider the heart of the problem: humanity's spirit. They had underestimated how much a people could endure when pushed to the brink. Earth's resistance may have started small, but it was growing stronger, more organized. Each sniper's shot, each ambush, each sabotage effort was sending a message across the Empire's vast network. Earth would not fall easily. And so, as the Empire continued its assault, it became clear that Earth was no longer just a planet waiting to be conquered. It was a battleground, a place where the Galactic Empire's dominance would be challenged in a way they had never experienced before. The true fight was just beginning, and neither side could predict how far it would go or what the outcome would be. The question on everyone's mind was clear: could the Empire truly defeat Earth, or would this be the first world to stand against their might and survive? As the days passed, the Galactic Empire began to realize just how much they had underestimated Earth. What had started as a seemingly straightforward invasion quickly turned into a nightmare of confusion and frustration for the Empire's leaders. The human resistance, though still disorganized, was beginning to show signs of strength. What was once a small group of guerrilla fighters was now becoming a more formidable force. Earth's military, once scattered and divided, began to pull together in ways that shocked the Empire. It was clear that Earth's people were not simply reacting to the invasion. They were adapting, learning how to fight back in ways the Empire had never expected. The Empire's soldiers were used to direct, overwhelming assaults. They had faced countless worlds that crumbled at the first hint of conflict. Yet, Earth's tactics were different. Instead of fighting in open battlefields, the humans were making their stand in the shadows. Earth's snipers, hidden deep in forests, on top of tall buildings, or miles away in the rugged countryside, began to pick off the Empire's soldiers one by one. They worked with incredible precision, striking before vanishing into thin air. It wasn't just the snipers. As the war dragged on, Earth's fighters began to form elaborate traps and ambushes, exploiting the terrain to their advantage. Cities that were once symbols of modernity and progress became urban mazes, perfect for setting deadly traps for the Empire's forces. Entire squads of soldiers were wiped out by a single explosive or sniper's bullet, and these guerrilla tactics started to take their toll. The Empire's soldiers, accustomed to battles where victory was determined by superior firepower, were now caught in a war of attrition. The Empire had never been prepared for this kind of resistance, and the effects began to show. The Empire's commanders had never faced a battle like this, a battle where the enemy was as ruthless, as clever, and as willing to fight for survival as the humans were. For the first time in decades, the Empire found themselves on the defensive. The invincible fleet that had once been a symbol of fear now seemed vulnerable. Ships that had once torn through enemy lines with ease were now being picked off by Earth's secretive and well-placed strikes. Their technology, while advanced, was not enough to counter the clever and unpredictable tactics of Earth's resistance. It became increasingly clear to the Empire that this would not be the easy conquest they had expected. As weeks turned into months, the frustration among the Empire's commanders grew. Each victory, though hard-earned, was a hollow one. For every battle they won, another loss followed. The humans seemed to rise from the ashes of defeat, more determined than ever. They would retreat into the shadows only to strike again when the Empire least expected it. Their resistance was not just surviving, it was evolving. The humans had learned to fight in ways that the Empire could not easily counter. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the human spirit was beginning to ignite a fire that the Empire could not put out. With every attack, every sniper's bullet, every successful ambush, the morale of Earth's people grew. They had realized something that the Empire had failed to see. They were not alone in this fight. Earth's people, though divided in the past, began to unite under a single cause: survival. Their unity, their will to fight, and their determination to protect their home were becoming a weapon far more powerful than anything the Empire had brought to bear. Earth's leaders, once fractured and fighting among themselves, now spoke in one voice. They communicated across the planet, rallying humanity's forces. Cities once divided by borders and politics now stood as unified strongholds, coordinating their resistance efforts. In the war rooms and hidden bases, Earth's generals planned their next moves, and their strategies were becoming more sophisticated. They were no longer simply trying to survive. They were fighting to win. For the first time, the Galactic Empire began to feel the weight of uncertainty. Their fleet, though powerful, was stretched thin, and their soldiers were tired, worn down by months of fighting in an unfamiliar and hostile environment. The Empire's commanders were starting to fear that this wouldn't be a war of easy conquest. It could turn into something much worse. And the worst part was, they didn't know how to stop it. They had underestimated the strength of Earth's people, and now they were paying the price. The question that haunted the minds of every Empire officer was simple: what had they missed? Why was Earth not crumbling like every other world they had conquered? Why was this small, insignificant planet giving them so much trouble? The answers were elusive, but there was one thing that was becoming crystal clear. Earth wasn't going to be an easy victory. And the longer the war dragged on, the more the Empire's victory seemed less certain. As the human resistance grew, the Empire's patience began to wear thin. Earth's fight had become more than just a battle for survival. It was a challenge to the Empire's entire existence. The Galactic Empire had conquered countless worlds, but Earth was different, and the Empire's leaders were beginning to realize that they might have made a grave mistake underestimating this small, stubborn planet. What they failed to realize was that Earth's resistance wasn't just about soldiers and weapons. It was about something far deeper, a belief in the right to exist, to survive, to defend their home. And that was something the Empire could never understand. The battle for Earth was just beginning, and as the resistance gained strength, the Empire's invincibility was beginning to crack. What had started as a simple invasion had now become a fight that would echo throughout the galaxy, and no one, not even the Empire, knew how it would end. As the months dragged on, the Galactic Empire began to show signs of weakness that had never been seen before. It wasn't just the snipers or the guerrilla tactics that were taking a toll. It was the growing realization that Earth's resistance was not just a rebellion. It was a movement that was rapidly gaining strength, forging alliances, and adapting in ways the Empire had never expected. One of the greatest surprises was the speed at which Earth's forces had begun to develop new technologies, adapting and scavenging from the wreckage of the Empire's own fleet. The humans had always been resourceful, and now, with their backs against the wall, they were learning how to reverse engineer the advanced technology the Empire had once thought invincible. While the Empire had assumed that they would control the skies and the battlefield with their superior tech, they now found themselves facing weapons and tactics that were rapidly catching up to their own. The snipers were still there, picking off targets with eerie accuracy. But now, Earth's scientists had developed countermeasures. They had modified EMP devices to disrupt the Empire's sophisticated shields, making it easier for their guerrilla forces to penetrate the invaders' defenses. They created new explosives that could cripple the Empire's war machines, turning the tide of smaller skirmishes. The tide was slowly turning in Earth's favor, but the Empire refused to acknowledge that they were losing. The Empire's generals, still reeling from their miscalculations, attempted to regain control by deploying larger, more powerful forces. They sent in their elite soldiers, their battle-hardened veterans who had crushed so many worlds before, expecting that they would be able to quash the human resistance once and for all. But the humans were different now. The cities that the Empire tried to destroy were no longer just places of occupation. They had become fortresses, heavily defended and prepared for the inevitable siege. Yet even with their advanced weapons and superior numbers, the Empire's forces struggled. As they advanced into human territory, they found themselves caught in traps that they couldn't anticipate. Earth's resistance had learned from every battle, adapted from every defeat, and now, the Empire's soldiers, with their pride and arrogance, were starting to suffer the consequences. Meanwhile, Earth's military was becoming increasingly organized. Nations that had once been divided by borders and politics now found themselves united under a single banner, defending their home from the Empire's invaders. Leaders from every corner of the world put aside their differences and worked together to fight the common enemy. The human spirit, something the Empire had completely underestimated, was their greatest weapon. The more they fought, the more the Empire's forces became overstretched. The war was becoming a drain on the Empire's resources. Supplies, troops, and reinforcements were no longer arriving as expected, and the Empire's commanders began to realize that Earth's resistance was far more capable than they had imagined. The battles were no longer one-sided. The humans were fighting back with ferocity and determination that was unlike anything the Empire had seen before. And it wasn't just the military that was resisting. It was the entire planet. Ordinary civilians, farmers, teachers, and workers who had never picked up a weapon were now engaging in sabotage operations, disrupting the Empire's supply lines, and fighting in ways that made even the most hardened soldiers question their own loyalty. The Empire's once confident soldiers were now beginning to feel the weight of a war that they had no idea how to win. The turning point came when a small group of humans, armed only with rudimentary weapons and an overwhelming desire to protect their families, managed to infiltrate an Empire stronghold deep behind enemy lines. This group, part of Earth's growing network of resistance cells, discovered something that sent shockwaves through the Empire's command. Secret plans for the construction of a devastating new weapon, one that could wipe out entire cities with a single strike. This weapon, known only as the Vortex Bomb, was the Empire's ultimate trump card. It was their last hope for victory, the final solution to their problem on Earth. The human resistance was quick to react. They launched a daring mission to sabotage the construction of the Vortex Bomb, hoping to destroy it before it could be used. This was the moment that would either make or break their fight for survival. They knew that if they failed, Earth would be wiped out completely. The odds were against them, But for the first time, Earth's forces had the upper hand. The attack on the vortex bomb facility was one of the most audacious operations ever attempted. Earth's best snipers, elite soldiers, and skilled engineers worked together in a high-risk, high-reward mission to infiltrate the facility and destroy the weapon before it could be completed. As they moved through the facility's labyrinthine corridors, every step they took brought them closer to the heart of the Empire's most powerful weapon. They fought through elite security forces, triggering alarms that would bring down the full force of the Empire's remaining fleet upon them. But they kept pushing forward. Then, as they neared the vortex bomb's core, the unthinkable happened. The Empire, realizing the risk, sent in a last-minute strike force, and a brutal firefight broke out. The humans were outgunned, outmanned, and on the brink of failure. But they fought with everything they had. They fought because they had no choice. They were defending their world, their homes, their families. In a desperate final push, the humans succeeded in planting explosives on the vortex bomb's core. As they ran for their lives, the Empire's forces closed in, but they were too late. The explosion was catastrophic. The shockwave reverberated across the entire planet, sending tremors that could be felt in every corner of Earth. The vortex bomb was destroyed, and with it, the Empire's most powerful weapon was gone. The defeat was a devastating blow to the Empire. With the loss of the vortex bomb, their strategy crumbled. The humans had struck at the heart of the Empire's plans, and the Empire knew they had to retreat. It wasn't just a military defeat, it was a loss of morale, of confidence. Earth had done the unthinkable. They had stopped the Empire in its tracks, and now the question that the Empire could no longer ignore was whether they could ever defeat Earth at all. As the Empire's fleet began to pull back, the humans took a collective breath. This was just one victory, but it was a crucial one. And for the first time, the Empire began to see Earth not as a minor nuisance to be crushed, but as a force that could change the course of their conquest forever. Earth was not giving up, and neither were its people. The battle for Earth was far from over, and both sides knew it. As the shockwaves of the explosion rippled through the Empire's forces, it became undeniable that Earth had dealt a crushing blow. The destruction of the vortex bomb was not just a tactical victory. It was a symbol of resistance, a beacon of hope for humanity. The Empire, once so confident in their superiority, now found themselves questioning their ability to conquer Earth. For the first time in this war, the Empire's invincibility seemed like a fragile illusion. The retreat of the Empire's forces was not a simple withdrawal. It was a sign of something much more profound, a recognition that they could not defeat Earth through sheer firepower alone. Their military might, their advanced technologies, and their overwhelming numbers have been neutralized by Earth's ingenuity and resolve. Earth's soldiers, snipers, and civilians had come together to protect their home, and in doing so, they had disrupted the Empire's entire war strategy. As the Empire's fleet retreated, leaving behind a trail of destruction in their wake, Earth's people began to realize that they had not just won a battle, they had won a war. They had shown the galaxy that no matter how advanced or powerful the enemy, there was one thing that could never be underestimated: the spirit of the people they sought to conquer. Back on Earth, the mood was a mix of relief and cautious optimism. The war was far from over, and the Empire had not been completely defeated, but the victory at the vortex bomb facility had shifted the balance of power. Earth's leaders, once divided and uncertain, now saw a clear path forward. They were no longer just defending their world. They were preparing to take the fight to the Empire itself. Humanity's victory was not just military. It was ideological. The Empire had underestimated the sheer determination of Earth's people, assuming that they could be easily subdued by their superior technology. They had overlooked one critical factor: the will to survive. Humans were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the future of their planet, their families, and their freedom. The Empire's mistake was assuming that Earth was just another world to conquer. but Earth's resilience, its determination, and its fierce will to protect their way of life had changed the rules of the game. The war now entered a new phase. Earth's forces began to rebuild, to regroup, and to plan their next move. The resistance was no longer just about survival. It was about taking the fight to the Galactic Empire. Earth's military, though still outmatched in terms of technology, had learned valuable lessons in guerrilla warfare, sabotage, and adaptation. They knew how to strike where the Empire was weakest, and they were now planning a series of offensive actions that would shake the foundations of the Empire's control. The Empire, on the other hand, was scrambling to reassess its position. The loss of the vortex bomb was a devastating blow, but it was more than that. It was a reminder that no world, no matter how seemingly insignificant, was beyond challenge. Earth's resistance had proven that the Empire's dominance was not as unshakable as they had once believed. The Empire's leaders, sitting in their faraway citadels, were beginning to realize that their strategy needed to change if they hoped to subdue Earth once and for all. But even as the Empire regrouped, the resistance on Earth grew stronger. New alliances were formed, and resources that had once been hidden away were now being brought into the fight. The snipers, guerrilla fighters, and ordinary civilians who had once fought in the shadows were now part of a well-organized and formidable resistance army. The humans had found their strength, and it was a force the Empire could no longer ignore. In cities around the world, the Empire's once invincible soldiers were now facing increasingly sophisticated resistance tactics. The humans knew their enemies' weaknesses, and they were exploiting them at every turn. The Empire's once unbeatable war machines, their towering ships and towering weapons, were now just targets waiting to be struck down. The tide of war had shifted, and Earth's resistance was determined to keep pushing forward, determined to see this fight through to the end. The ultimate question now loomed over the conflict. Would the Empire learn from its mistakes and regroup, or would Earth's resistance continue to erode the Empire's power until nothing remained but a shattered Empire and a free Earth? As Earth's forces began to prepare for their next major offensive, it was clear that this war was far from over. The next chapter in the struggle for Earth's survival was about to begin, and no one, not even the Galactic Empire, knew what the outcome would be. The stakes had never been higher, but the humans of Earth, now united in purpose and resolve, were ready to face whatever came next. They had already defied the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known, and they were willing to fight to the bitter end. Earth was no longer just a small, insignificant world. It was the heart of a resistance that could challenge the might of the Galactic Empire itself. The battle for Earth's future was far from decided, but humanity's spirit had already proven to the galaxy that they were not going down without a fight. The Empire had been warned. The next strike was coming, and this time, Earth would not be caught off guard. The situation was rapidly evolving, and the Galactic Empire knew that Earth's resistance had become a formidable force. The Empire's fleet, once seen as the invincible arm of their vast empire, now seemed inadequate against the growing strength of humanity's defense. As Earth's forces grew more organized and prepared for the upcoming offensive, the Galactic Empire began to make plans for a massive counterattack. Behind the scenes, the Empire's high command was scrambling to find a way to regain control over Earth. They had underestimated humanity's resilience, and now they were facing the consequences. They had lost their prized weapon, the vortex bomb, and their battle strategy had been thrown into disarray. Earth was no longer a planet to be conquered in a matter of months. It had become a battleground that would determine the future of the galaxy. The Empire could not afford to lose. The Empire's response was swift. They mobilized their best forces and began sending reinforcements from across the galaxy. This new fleet, larger and more powerful than before, was designed to overwhelm Earth's defenses once and for all. They deployed their elite shock troops, heavily armored soldiers who had crushed entire civilizations with ruthless efficiency. But Earth's resistance had learned much from their earlier victories. They knew that brute force alone would not win this war. In the days leading up to the Empire's new offensive, Earth's forces were preparing for their own strike. The human resistance had found new ways to counter the Empire's tactics. They had acquired stolen tech, studied the Empire's weaknesses, and were now using guerrilla warfare in ways that the Empire could not anticipate. Earth's resistance no longer feared the Empire's might. They were ready to face them head-on. The first phase of the Empire's counterattack began with a barrage of strikes on Earth's key cities. Spacecraft descended from the skies, unleashing devastating weapons on Earth's population centers. Entire regions were torn apart, cities reduced to rubble. The Empire's soldiers flooded the streets, confident that they would crush humanity's remaining resistance once and for all. But as the first wave of destruction unfolded, Earth's defenses were far more prepared than the Empire had expected. Snipers, hidden in the remains of the shattered cities, began to pick off Imperial soldiers one by one. The guerrilla units, now better equipped and coordinated, launched surprise attacks that crippled the Empire's advance. In the midst of the chaos, Earth's leadership made an unexpected decision. They initiated Operation Phoenix, a bold and risky plan to strike at the heart of the Empire itself. The plan was simple yet audacious. Earth's best forces would infiltrate one of the Empire's most heavily fortified battlecruisers, destroy its core systems, and cripple the Empire's control over their entire fleet. The operation had a slim chance of success, but it was Earth's last hope to turn the tide of the war once and for all. The resistance fighters involved in Operation Phoenix were the best of the best. Snipers, engineers, and warriors who had spent the war adapting to the Empire's advanced technology. They were led by General Merritt Ellison, a brilliant strategist who had orchestrated many of the early victories. Her team infiltrated the battlecruiser's outer defenses, using stolen Empire tech to bypass security systems. As they moved deeper into the ship, the tension was palpable. Every step was a risk, every decision a potential disaster. But their objective was clear: destroy the heart of the Empire's fleet and take away their ability to continue the war. Meanwhile, the battle on Earth raged on. The Empire's forces were relentless, but they were becoming increasingly disorganized. Earth's people fought with a desperation and determination that the Empire had never seen before. The invincible Empire, once so sure of its victory, now found itself battling not just a planet, but a united and defiant species. Even the most elite Imperial soldiers began to question the odds. The once dominant fleet was slowly being picked apart, and each successful human strike made it harder for the Empire to maintain control. The tipping point came when General Ellison's team reached the core of the battlecruiser. They planted explosives on the ship's power systems, ready to deal a blow to the Empire's command structure. But the Empire was not unaware. Their forces engaged in a fierce firefight as Earth's resistance pushed forward. The battle on the ship was unlike any other. The sound of gunfire echoed through the halls, and the air was thick with tension. The human forces, though outnumbered, fought with the desperation of soldiers who knew that the future of their planet depended on their success. With the countdown to the explosion ticking down, General Ellison's team made their final push. They fought their way through the Empire's defenses, planting the final charges at the heart of the ship. The explosion was deafening, an eruption of energy that shook the entire battlecruiser. Earth's resistance fighters barely escaped with their lives, but their mission was a success. The Empire's fleet was thrown into chaos as the core systems of the flagship battlecruiser collapsed, sending shockwaves through the Imperial fleet. The consequences were immediate. The loss of such a key vessel disrupted the Empire's command structure, and their forces began to crumble. The once mighty fleet was now a fragmented force, disoriented and unsure of their next move. For the first time in the war, the Empire's defeat seemed like a real possibility. Earth's resistance had proven once again that the Empire's technology and tactics were no match for human ingenuity and spirit. Back on Earth, the victory was celebrated, but the war was far from over. The battle for Earth had reached a critical juncture. The Empire, though wounded, was far from defeated. They would regroup and attempt to strike back, but the momentum had shifted. Earth's resistance had grown stronger, more coordinated, and more determined. They had proven that even the mightiest empire could fall to the will of a united people. In the weeks that followed, Earth's forces began to push back against the retreating empire. Cities that had once been battlegrounds were now liberated, and the humans reclaimed their land. The empire, still reeling from the loss of their battlecruiser, was forced to retreat to their strongholds, hoping to regroup and salvage their failing war effort. But the message was clear: Earth had not just survived. They had fought back, and as long as Earth's people remained united, the Empire's chances of victory grew slimmer every day. The battle for Earth was not yet won, but the first step toward freedom had been taken. As Earth's leaders rallied their forces for the final push, they knew that the war was about to reach its ultimate climax. The Galactic Empire had underestimated humanity, and now they would face the full force of Earth's resistance. The final chapter of this war would soon unfold, and the question was no longer if Earth would survive, but when the Empire would finally be defeated.